What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through the best value forwards in the FPL game. So we've gone over the overpriced forwards, we've gone over the underpriced forwards, now it's time to look at the best value ones. So go check those videos out if you guys haven't. A lot of insight is gauged from those extended to this video, which I think is going to be quite insightful. Now I've already gone over the best value defenders in the game at the moment, released that video yesterday, so go check that video out if you guys haven't. But now it's time for the forward position. So comment down below who's your current forward pair. It's probably going to be 2. If it's 3, that's going to be quite a unique strategy, as I haven't seen many drafts with a 3 up front. Now you guys can almost remove Erling Haaland from that 2, so who's your single different striker that you have up front? Now that player might change as this video does progress, so that's why I want you guys to comment before you watch. But without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So going over a quick recap of how I actually created this video. The player data I used was going to be the points from last season and the prices from this season, but then I used it in a formula of divide, and it's going to be points divided by prices. So another way to think of this is going to be the points per million that each kind of forward offers. Now I'll be going over the better value options this video. Now unfortunately I didn't go over every forwards, and I'll explain why. When I go over my filter, I went for a filter of plus 60 points. So this will be kind of 30 games with 2 appearance points, which is pretty easy in my opinion. So basically what we're going for is if they either were nailed or they got a few attacking returns, because if they started in January, got a few goals, got a few attacking returns, they still have more than 60 points. Now the reason I went over this, especially for kind of the value and per 90 minutes metrics, is there might be 1 or 2 forwards that played 1 or 2 games, got attacking returns in each of those games, and therefore their per 90 stats will be outstanding. So I want to avoid those. I don't think those options are too reliable in FPL, and that's why I did actually filter my data. Now if you guys have any questions about this, comment them down below on my Discord server, link in the description as well. But let's go on to the actual graphs. This is what you guys want in this video. So on screen right now, you guys are going to see the value of all the forwards. Now I'm going to start at the top right hand side, because that's usually where people want to start. Go over the best options first, then go over the weaker options as we go along. So on the top of the screen, you guys can see Ivan Toney as the best value option in the game. Now I don't really know what FPL did with his price. They might have made his price quite cheap because, as you guys know, he's suspended for the majority of the season. So did they go for a cheap price point, or did they simply ignore it and just price him how they thought it should be? But anyways, either approach they did, his value is going to be the best in the forwards. But as you guys know, he's not going to feature at all. But what's interesting for me is that his replacement might actually feature. If it's going to be Visa, if it's going to be Mbumo, they could replace Ivan Toney, and that makes them even better options. Let's talk about Visa for the time being. Kind of comes in, if you look in the middle of the graph, there's a big gap, and Visa's at the top. So Visa can replicate the form of Ivan Toney, very hard to do I will say, but if he can at least fill his shoes somewhat, he could be a great FPL asset. Now he also comes in quite cheap, that's why his value metric is pretty high at only 6 million. Now let's go down from the top rating with Ollie Watkins, a very underrated option in my opinion. Emre is an absolute class manager, and therefore Ollie Watkins with a full season under him could be absolute FPL gold. Now yes, the Villa fixtures aren't the best in the world, but they have some nice fixtures here and there, and that's why Ollie Watkins could be going under the radar. So really like him as an option. He's basically one of the most nailed options in the game at the moment, so what can kind of go wrong? Now we go on to Harry Kane, who's in an interesting kind of predicament at the moment, or maybe Spurs are. Should they sell him? Should they keep him for another year? We don't really know what's going to happen with Harry Kane, but if he does stay at Spurs, he's great value for money. Now he comes in slightly cheaper than Erling Haaland, but at a similar kind of points output, but that was after a very good season. So will he replicate that form? If he does, great value for money, and that's saying something as a 12.5 forward. Within a Dom Solanke, a nice cheap alternative if you guys do want to go there. Going to start for Bournemouth, won't score the most goals in the world, but if he does, or you can time the fixtures nicely, could be a nice budget pick. Then we have Callum Wilson, one of my favorite kind of strikers to go for. When he's on the pitch, he gets you FPL points. I went with Isaac at the end of last season. I should have gone with Callum Wilson, so maybe I'll go from this season. Now here's a big point. Like Harry Kane, Erling Haaland is still good value for money, and this is without even doubling his points, because what's going to happen, you guys are going to captain him basically every single game week. You can double his points, and that'll give you double the value. So it's still massively underrated, even at 14.0 million, but seeing his value metrics makes me wonder if a Harry Kane Haaland draft might be the one to go for. Now I've already spoken about Visa. I like him as an option. He was in my previous kind of updated draft, and that was a lovely 4-3-3. Now the rest of the kind of rankings, I'm not going to go over them too much. There might be 1 or 2 options I kind of speak about. Maybe like an Alvarez, if he does get minutes, he's going to be good value for money. And then just under him is Gabriel Jesus, but as you guys know, didn't play every single minute last season, so his total points output took a hit. Now the rest of the options I want to kind of talk about in the next talking point, which is going to be the value per 90 minutes. So on screen right now, you guys can see the value per 90 minutes. Now what I did here to get that kind of per 90 minutes ratio, I didn't take the kind of game started or games featured. I took the minutes, divided them by 90, so almost assume kind of per 90 minute stats. Now we're going over those in a little bit more in depth in next week's kind of forward video, where I actually decide who are the best forwards to pick. So for the time being, this per 90 stat is perfectly fine. What this is going to show us, maybe a forward didn't play the full season, but when they did feature, they got you FPL points. So for example, the top hand side, we've got Vinicius. Now unfortunately with Mitrovic leaving, he's not going to be the main striker. It seems like they've just signed Raul Jimenez, but Vinicius still should get some minutes. Now I probably won't go from, but if you guys wanted to, let's just say that Raul Jimenez is injured. Vinicius could be a nice selection, as when he featured, his value was simply outstanding. Now you guys can understand why I don't really want to talk about those bottom options. The main reason for those options being weaker on the value metric was the simple fact that they didn't get enough FPL minutes. So Visa's kind of an exception there, got a few minutes, still great value for money, especially with Ivan Toney out. Now we hit kind of a range where these options, if they do feature, they're going to get you FPL points, such as Ferguson for Brighton, really like him as a striker, should hopefully get some more minutes, but you always have Welbeck and those options in and around there, so that's why he's kind of a slight concern. Alvarez though, I really like him as an option. With Kevin De Bruyne returning to the preseason squad, don't exactly know how many minutes he's going to get, but with Mahrez leaving, maybe Alvarez can feature there. But he's kind of a maybe, question mark, same as Nketiah. Gabriel Jesus is probably main choice up front. But let's say those main options do get injured, these options will slot straight in. Callum Wilson, great option at the end of the day, really spoke about his kind of end of season theatrics, great into the season, and then Danny Ings, if he does feature, he gets you FPL points. Now what was quite interesting for me to see here was going to be Gakpo and also Darwin Núñez. I actually thought that their point 90 stats would be slightly better, but I guess they do come in slightly more expensive. Their points per 90 minutes are pretty respectable though, so that's kind of a redeeming factor for them. Now one example I want to use of how to kind of combine these two graphs is from the previous kind of graph to this graph. Look at Ivan Toney. He was the top kind of value pick, but in terms of the per 90 stats, wasn't that great. What that tells you is that he started the majority of games, got the most minutes, but his per game stats weren't that great, but you can understand it. If he's playing every game, his output's going to be slightly reduced. So what I'm saying there is, for example, if the players at the top hand side of this graph, if they can keep their output as the same and they can play the majority of minutes, they're going to be absolute FPL gold. So it is quite hard to predict who those players are going to be, but I guess that's why we are FPL managers, because we like the challenge. So comment down below, which forward do you think is going to be the outside punt for this season? Is it going to be a Visa in the absence of Ivan Toney? Or do you guys like someone like a Ferguson from Brighton? While you're at it, comment down below who your strikers are at the current moment. Probably Erling Haaland, but who's the second or the third one? But this is basically going to wrap up the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you didn't subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for loads more content coming up this preseason, as well as the best value midfielders and goalkeepers coming up in the next 2 days. But I'm going to sign off. This has been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.